Hi, Founder fans. Jason here, and today's founder is Francis Otway Byrd. Although he has no known image, he sacrificed what he expected to be an extremely large inheritance for the Patriot cause. So, Francis Otway Byrd comes from the Byrd family. His father was William Byrd III, which means his great grandfather, William Byrd I, was important to early Virginia in the 1600s. His grandfather, William Byrd II, is one of the most important people in colonial Virginia history. He spent several decades, though born in Virginia, he spent that time back in London as Virginia's agent, colonial agent, and coming back, he did just a tremendous amount. It's hard to understate the importance of William Byrd to the development of the colony of Virginia. Now, Francis's father, William Byrd III, not so much. You see, his father put Francis in the British Navy when he came of age, and the agreement was that should he serve in the British Navy at least until his mother's death, then Francis Otway Byrd would have a princely sum as his inheritance. See, his father was not only a Byrd, but his mother was a Carter, another extremely wealthy Virginian family of the mid-18th century. However, Francis Byrd dropped out of the Navy against his father's wishes and signed up with the Continental Army. Now, as I like to say, the American Revolution was a civil war, and the Byrd family obviously had a major disagreement on what side to take. For all intents and purposes, Francis Otway Byrd should definitely have been a loyalist. He should have sided with the king. His family had such a long history of helping and working with the crown that it almost doesn't make sense. Except when we realize, well, Francis's father, William Byrd III, was a bit of a gambler and had gambled away essentially all of the family money. Now, how much of this Francis knew is hard to determine, though it does seem likely that he realized his father had gambled away all the family's money. I will say, his father is one of the earliest horse racers in the United States, so he does have that, or future United States, I should say. As for Byrd, realizing that this wasn't going very well, he ends up, instead of joining the British Navy, going to join the Continental Army. And he goes to the 3rd Virginia Convention. The Virginia Conventions were 5 sessions of what essentially was the shadow government when the Patriots decided to no longer listen to the royal governor who dissolved their colonial assembly. They had these conventions, and different colonies called the conventions different things. Virginia called them the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th Virginia Conventions. Francis goes to the 3rd of these and says, hey, here's my predicament. Now, all these gentlemen who were really members of the House of Burgesses, the colonial assembly, look at Francis. They see the family he's come from and that he is from an elite family, which was oh so important back then. And they realize that his father is not on their team, and his father's kind of a degenerate. The word is out at this point. So they offer Byrd a position. They give him a letter of recommendation to newly appointed Commander-in-Chief George Washington, who only recently had taken control of the Continental Army outside Boston. And they send Byrd north, and he gets to Boston, and Washington appoints him, and Major General Charles Lee accepts him as an aide-de-camp to General Lee, who then promptly moves with him back south. Byrd would serve with Lee for 3 years, most notably in the first siege of Charleston, but pretty valiantly throughout the years. However, during the second year, 2 years after he joins the army, that father, William Byrd III, who was a gambler, he realized, for reasons all his own, deeply in debt, decides to take his own life. And this is the final nail in the coffin for the Byrd family, Otway realizing, well, I guess I wasn't getting that inheritance. He ends up serving for another year, but then goes to help his stepmother take care of the debts left behind by the father, who squandered really 2 wealthy families' inheritances. And I should note that Byrd's mother, he was one of 5 children, and then his stepmother had 10 more. So there were 15 Byrd children left to take care of, and with Francis being one of the eldest, a lot of the burden fell on him. So he goes back. Now, he moves back to his hometown of Charles City County, Virginia. It's a very interesting name for a county, Charles City County, Virginia. and he's elected sheriff. He actually becomes sheriff of this county for the better part of 20 years. During this time, 20 years go by and the Whiskey Rebellion breaks out. Byrd actually serves as a quartermaster general for the Virginia militia, and he helps out with Maryland's militia also during the Whiskey Rebellion. So a little bit of a smaller role in this, but still participating in the founding up to this point. And then by 1797, he is appointed by President now John Adams as customs collector for the port of Norfolk in Virginia. And at the time, Norfolk was one of the main hubs of commerce entering the young United States, especially in the upper South. I want to say mid-Atlantic, but Virginia. It's arguably the most important port in Virginia. And as collector of customs, he's the one overseeing all the ships coming into and leaving the harbor, making sure the books are right. But sadly, just 3 years into this position, Francis Otway Byrd does pass away at just the age of 44. Now, it's very interesting, this story to me, because you see how it's a civil war. You see how families are divided, even wealthy families. And you see how even people like Byrd, who should, for all intents and purposes, be associated with the crown, still find their patriotism to fight against Great Britain in this fashion. And a lot of that could stem back. You look at, as I said, his family line. His family had put so much work into building Virginia into its own thing. And his grandfather, as I said, had worked for 35 years in London as a representative of Virginia because his grandfather was born in Virginia. And you see a lot of that tenacity, that determination to be in control of your own affairs coming through in the story of Francis Otway Byrd, who, although his father had squandered most of his fortune, for all intents and purposes, for what we know, Byrd would have assumed that he was leaving a gigantic inheritance when he did not join the British Navy and instead chose to join the Continental Army. So that's today's founder, Francis Otway Byrd. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely hit like. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. I put out videos all week long. I did want to say one more thing. I had a viewer on my live video ask a question yesterday, and I didn't see it until after the video was over. I do apologize, but I wanted to note Craig Kincaid, if you're watching, he asked about a video or a movie that I might recommend for 4th of July. Now, we're a day late, and there are lots of fun movies, but when it comes to 4th of July, I do like to watch the John Adams miniseries from HBO from about 15 years ago now. It is fantastic. Its attention to detail is great. As with all movies, it takes some artistic license, but especially the episode where they're debating independence. I believe it's the 3rd episode. They're debating independence. And if you're going to watch something on 4th of July, that's my recommendation. So it's a bit belated, and I apologize for that, and totally irrelevant to Francis Byrd, but thank you for the question, and there's a little extra tidbit for you today. Make sure you come back tomorrow, where I will be back with another founder for you.